Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Hale, the CEO of Well Spirit Consulting Group, and I'm joined tonight with Dr. Renee Hale. You want to say something?
Hi. Yep, glad to be here. Having a little bit of technical difficulty. You'd think you could get this, all the stuff to work together every time, but it just seems that tonight was a little bit of a hang up with the video camera, so we're finally here.
Yeah, well, we're glad to be here tonight, and we're going to be talking about change the world, how ordinary people can achieve extraordinary results. And this follows up on our Leaders Alive program earlier this afternoon on WJOB 12:30 a.m. in Hammond, Indiana. And we had a delightful conversation to kick that off this afternoon. And to begin with, we want to share with you exactly why we're doing this. This is part of our three great book series with Well Spirit Consulting this summer that we're doing on our Leaders Alive radio program, and we've chosen three books that have meant a lot to us personally, books that we keep going back to for guidance and for encouragement and for instruction over the years. And the first book we did in the month of June was John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And now we're turning to Robert Quinn's book, Change the World, How Ordinary People Can Achieve Extraordinary Results. And this is what it looks like.
That's a
And
good view.
yeah, and you can purchase it off of Amazon. This afternoon on the radio show, we explained a little bit of the personal connection that we have with the book, and we wanted to start our discussion off tonight again with that, just to set the stage so that you know the impact that this book has made on us personally. It's been nearly 8 years ago, or 9.
Actually, it was 10 now, I think.
10, a decade ago, that Renee and I were working overseas, and we had been there for 14 years. We worked in a large international organization, and we actually shared a leadership role together in that organization that had us working in multiple countries. And we were really happy in that role, and we really enjoyed it, found it to be very personally and professionally fulfilling. And then things changed. Our boss changed, and then the division of the company that we worked for changed, and then finally our job changed. And suddenly and unexpectedly, we found ourselves in a work situation that was just really unacceptable for us. Now, we want to be quick to say that we don't think that it was our boss or our company that was intentionally trying to place us in a difficult situation, but rather as just in the normal course of change that happens in any organization, we found ourselves in a situation that that we just really felt like was detrimental to us personally and to our family. And it put us in a real dilemma because we love the organization and we really wanted to stay, and but at the same time we felt like for professional and personal reasons it was probably time for us to move on. Yet it was difficult because we had invested 14 years of our life in another part of the world. Uh, we really didn't have any professional connections very much back in the U.S., and we certainly had no job opportunities on the horizon. At the same time that this was going on, I happened to be reading Change the World by Robert E. Quinn, and I came upon this passage. And it's rather lengthy, it's a couple of paragraphs, but I'm going to read it in its entirety so that you'll get a sense of the power of this book and how it touched our lives in that context. So, here it is. Change is not easy, both organizationally and individually. We are continually faced with the choice between deep change and slow death. We are all terrified by the prospect of deep change, since deep change means altering some of our most fundamental beliefs and commitments. In political terms, I should say, in practical terms, it can mean giving up an entire way of life, changing our job, our station in life, our salary, our daily activities, the people with whom we associate, and the place where we live. When someone tells me that they love change because it offers an opportunity to grow, it's a pretty good bet that they are talking about incremental change. That is, change over which they have some degree of control. Deep change is not incremental change. Rather, it is radical or out-of-the-box change. It usually requires letting go of control. It means facing the unknown, walking naked into the land of uncertainty. We spend most of our lives striving to avoid that very prospect. When faced with the choice between uncertainty and conformity, we will usually choose conformity. Oddly enough, we will cling to conformity even when we know the overall system in which we are operating and which gives us our all-important illusion of certainty is dying. And I think one of the things that really struck me out of that is that we're continually faced with the choice between deep change and slow death. And I certainly didn't want to experience slow death. And so after much reflection and prayer and discussion, Renee and I decided that we would leave that position. We resigned, actually, not knowing what we would do. There were no job opportunities on the horizon at the time we wrote our resignation letter. Mm-hmm. And so it was a moment of deep, fundamental change for us where we really gave up a whole career and a way of life that we loved. Anything you want to add to that, Renee?
Well, it was our personal experience. So this is the most recent huge change. Although there have been slightly smaller deep changes since then, there are different categories, I think, of deep change. That was the most recent and, huge one. I mean, we moved from one continent to another. We didn't know what we were going to do, so it was a really clear-cut example of deep change. And I think it's important to note that while some people could really relate to that, there's so many other ways that deep change can happen, including choosing it for yourself, that I guess that's all I want to say right now. We can just kind of move more into it and talk about it.
Great. 3 points that we made today on the radio program is that deep change is often prompted by unexpected events. In our case, that was the case. This was a totally unexpected situation that came for us and really put us in a position of having to make tough choices. The other thing is that deep change really means that you have to embrace the idea of uncertainty, and you have to be willing to really walk into uncertainty, not knowing how things are going to come out. And then finally, though, and in this situation and in other situations like this that we have faced in our life, we have found that when we were willing to embrace that uncertainty, it has always worked out. That our lives have become richer, more meaningful, and that our personal and professional influence and impact has actually grown. Anything you'd like to say about that, Renee? Or
Yeah,
those?
I think that having the idea of the personal leadership and professional influence, growing and changing and being enriched, those things are what really makes the connection between this concept and what we do. When you're talking about positive change, I think it might even go in the reverse order in your mind or your heart. You might think to yourself, for example, we know someone who enjoys creating deep change for themselves because they start out with the idea, oh, this is going to enrich my life. And then they go to embracing that change, and then possibly at the end there's something unexpected that causes that to come to an end, and another choice on the horizon. But whether it's a positive change or a negative change, if it's deep change, you still have to have that ability or willingness to accept the uncertain part of it, and discipline yourself every day to approach the uncertainty with a positive attitude so that you can manage it well and make the most out of it, and then do get to that part where it enriches your life.
Absolutely. Uh, just so that you know, we do have a slide share presentation on this that you can find at slideshare.com and look under Well Spirit Consulting there, and you'll find this deck of slides that we're going to talk about tonight. Robert Quinn, in the book, he talks about the difference between normal change and transformational change. The basic distinction we've already talked about, that normal change deals with incremental change. It's basically trying to get change, but not so much shake up the status quo. Where transformational change is radical, is out of the box. It really is a game changer kind of change, either in an organization or for someone personally.
Didn't you talk about earlier that normal change, what we called normal change, would be the kind of thing that you like really welcome that in an organization because you feel like you can kind of control it. You're not going to lose your status. You're not going to lose your place. It's kind of safe to be there in a normal change. And it can also present you in a very admirable spot because, hey, you led change, and you were this great change person, but you handled it, in such a way, going at a pace that was controllable and predictable for you. So I think that that's kind of what we talked about earlier, and that difference between that and feeling like you're being flung off a cliff or flung into a swimming pool and you didn't know how to swim. It's a different feeling altogether, that deep change, the transformational kind.
Right. Yeah, it's a contrast between change where you're somewhat in control and change where you're really not in control. You're surfing, as Quinn would say, you're surfing an emerging reality.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so there are three normal ways that people approach change, and fundamentally, at the root of these three normal changes, or three normal approaches to change, it's about really preserving oneself, uh, being able to gain status and resources while avoiding pain and punishment is basically how we approach change. So let's talk about the three normal strategies for change. The first is telling. Uh, you try and just based on explaining facts and rational argument, you want to tell people how they should change. You got any insights on that, Renee? How does that usually work?
Oh, I think, that would be in the category of if you're responsible for leading, say, a small group or a team, and you've done some research on what's coming next for your team, and you realize, though, you need to take a little different approach, you might come to the meeting and say, folks, I've done some thinking about this and some research, and they're all like, oh, well, we're glad because we didn't do any, so let's hear what you have to say. And then you basically tell the people, look, based on these things that we have done, I really believe that moving in this other direction is going to serve us better. So that's what we're going to do, and it'll mean a few little things here and there, for example, and then you'll say what those are. But overall, I think it's going to be so much better for us in the long run. Hey, I think it's going to be great. So let's go for it.
Yeah. And you try and build your case on a rational argument, and
Right.
you're hoping that you will persuade people to buy into your rationality.
That's right.
There. And that probably works okay unless people start to sense that this change is going to have some kind of effect on them personally. And then other factors start to kick in rather than just, okay, is this rationally a good idea to be pursuing? And so oftentimes then as you start to push up against some emotional resistance to this change, because it actually is going to mean maybe that someone is going to have to change an assignment, or perhaps even some people are going to be let go because of this change, and there becomes some emotional resistance to the change because people aren't buying into the rationality of it. And that's when many leaders in a normal situation will resort to the second strategy for change, and that's just simply forcing people to do. And that so in a forcing strategy, you're going to leverage behavior based on authority.
Wait, is that now what you're talking about is like positional power?
Right, absolutely. You're going to
you
use your position
outrank the
to make
person.
change happen.
If you outrank that person and you can make that decision, then you can just do it, and it doesn't really matter what the other people think.
Right, absolutely. And actually, in most situations, those are the two default options. I mean, I will tell you what to do. I will explain it to you rationally. Hopefully you will buy into it. But if you don't buy into it, because I have the position of authority here, I can just make you do it. And many leaders never move beyond those two approaches to change. However, there is a third approach to change, and that's a participatory style, or a participating style of change, where the leader invites open dialogue, and he or she really wants to use good relationships to bring people along, to gain an emotional buy-in into the change that the leader wants to make.
Well, I think it's more than just can be more than just an emotional buy-in, right? It can be an intellect, should be a full gamut of things, including intellectual, psychological. When you talk about people getting on the same page, that would mean all of those things coming together, including the emotional part. But what you described before, the first two ways that a
Mm-hmm.
leader would go for change normally.
Mm-hmm.
Those are alone ways of doing it. It just involves that leader. They're the ones telling. They're the ones forcing. But when you go to that third way,
Mm-hmm.
that's collaborative. That's
Yes.
different.
Yeah. And the reason that people stick in the first and second ways is simply because that's easier. I mean, it's easier to tell somebody what to do, and then if they won't do it, then you make them do it. That's just
Yeah.
not that difficult. Um,
Well, when you say that, it makes me think of parenting. Honestly, you see parents that are trying to tell children. And in public, a lot of times, especially when you don't want to appear harsh, you will tell the little person, the child. I mean, I can remember doing this, saying, "Oh, now, don't you want to come and do this? This is nicer. This is better. This is, you're trying to convince them by your tone of voice and everything else to do that thing or to stop doing that thing or to change their behavior." And then hopefully they will do that. But if they don't, if they're not convinced that they want to do that, then they continue. Then you have to move to the forcing part. That seems kind of like a parenting way of getting change in kids. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of off the subject, but it seems to me what comes to mind when I hear those two things is, oh, I see a lot of parents doing that. They start
yeah,
out with the telling, and when the telling doesn't work, then they just force. Um, it's rare that you see a parent, getting down on the floor with a kid and working out something, that collaborative stuff.
yeah. And how many adults want to be parented?
How many adults want to be parented? Are you asking that question? I
Yeah.
don't think very many adults want to be parented. They'd rather be a peer. They would rather be treated like a peer.
Right. But it's much easier to take that telling and forcing point of view, because once you get into collaboration uh, and dialogue, that means there's got to be, it implies some give and take there,
Right.
in order to be successful, the the leader may have to bring some compromise into
Right.
play as well. Uh, but that participatory or participating style of leadership actually doesn't happen a whole lot, because it is more difficult. And sometimes uh, it's even though it's a much higher level way to lead, sometimes the way it is done actually causes people to become cynical, because they feel like the leader is trying to manipulate them into accepting their point of view, the leader's point of view,
Right.
by trying to leverage uh, dialogue and relationship simply to manipulate them into acquiescing to what the leader wants them to do. And if followers begin to perceive that that's what's going on, then often a cynicism about the change effort will set in.
Yeah, because the people that are being asked to do the massive change or being told to do the massive change,
Mm.
if there's a sense of fakeness or phoniness about the sincerity of having a dialogue, that's the worst. It would have been better never to even have the dialogue.
Yeah.
Just tell us what you want us to do. Tell us what it's going to be, and then we can make our choice. Do we want to stay or do we want to leave? But if you do this thing and you're trying to, you know, act like you're having a dialogue, oh, you're going to be heard, and then you bring everybody to a meeting and everybody gets to say their token piece, and then you walk out, and of course, you walk out and you think, nobody's ever going to listen to that. The
Right.
point,
And
yeah.
at the end of the day, it becomes telling and forcing again.
It is telling and forcing with a mask on. It's masked or faked as something different. And people know when it's happening to them. One thing I really like about this book is the vocabulary that Robert Quinn chooses expresses it so well. Just in the quote that you read, the deep change, what are you going to have? That or a slow death? And that's how people feel when they find themselves in the middle of that kind of manipulative activity. It's like a slow death.
Absolutely. And it's a terrible feeling because I've felt that before. I know exactly
I have to, and
what
here's the comments. Here are the comments that you hear from that. You hear people saying things like, they walk out of meetings like that and they say, man, do these people think we're stupid or what? Do they think we can't see this? This doesn't take a rocket scientist to see this. And because of what you said, that cynicism setting in,
Mhm.
everything about their job is affected. The productivity, the volume of productivity, the quality of productivity. And then, of course, eventually, ultimately, probably the loss of that person totally. And so then you've got, your retention rate is smashed because you got people leaving on you.
Right. Um, Also, so that pretty much covers the three levels of what Quinn calls normal change.
I
And
guess it's normal because a lot of people do it that way. Because to me, I don't like that actually saying normal. But again, he's chosen the word very carefully. Why is that normal? Normal is a norm, something that happens most of the time or a lot of the time.
absolutely, and that's what he means by
I
that.
know. I just wanted
Not
to,
that it's normal and healthy, but
right. I wanted to make
normal
that
because
distinction.
that's the way the world is.
Yes, I wanted to make that distinction so that, people watching didn't think that we thought that was, oh, that's normal, that's right. No, no, it's just that is the norm, and that, in fact, is how it happens a lot of the time.
Great, and we're delighted to have uh, Halshi join us tonight and hanging out here with us. And if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. We'd love to respond to you.
You know what, Jeff? Can you type that name over there so I can see it too?
I don't know if I can type it in. Yeah, let's see.
Oh, okay. Maybe you could type it in there. I've got a group chat thing over here on
Yeah,
the side.
I've got the question app opened. Uh,
Okay.
yeah. All right, here. So you should see that now. Awesome.
Oh, I do. I see it.
Okay, good. Well, uh, I'm going to reach back here and turn this light on here because I'm
Is
getting
it
in the
getting
dark.
dark in your room? There you go.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
Awesome.
now you're lit up. So
I'm
now
bright.
we're moving from the normal change now to we're going to talk about then what is deep change as opposed to what he calls the normal change.
Right.
Okay.
And deep change or transformational change really starts with action based in principle. In other words, I am acting out of my deep values. Then it will require you to persist often through pain and punishment. Because, again, deep change is not normal change. And
Mhm.
normal change is basically about making incremental changes to improve the system, but really working hard to make sure the status quo in terms of um, in terms of the recognition that I have, the status that I have, the resources that I have, um, and or the rewards that are due me in that system remain intact, and that I don't get pain or punishment
Mhm.
within that system. So, but when you take a step out and you actually start acting out of universal principles of understanding of what is good and right and moral and ethical, oftentimes you will push up against what is normal in an organization, or within a family.
Well, here's what
Uh,
I wanted to say. It reminds me of anyone that is working towards maybe defending a cause. Even that. I mean, you're talking about whatever the values are inside that person. You know, that is what drives people to do things like make a deep change. Say, let's just take an example that's extreme. Um, Selling a lot of what they have so that they can be more mobile and go stand up for a cause somewhere or go serve people that are in extreme poverty. Or when you look at what Mother Teresa did, you know, those are things that she made those decisions. There was deep change involved to go do that thing,
right,
to go along with the deep values that she held.
right. And the normal system will say, why are you doing that? I mean, why are you giving up these rewards, these benefits to go do this? Or it will tell you, you can't do that. You're
Hmm.
not really qualified to do that. I mean, and who do you think you are anyway?
Yeah.
You know? Um, so, but you persist through the experience of pain and punishment. And when you do that, you begin to, I want to say, pour forth uh, a sense of moral power that actually begins to attract people to you and to your cause. And you begin to inspire others. Because, see, in deep change, it's not about you. It's about giving ourselves over to a deep calling, a cause, a purpose. And yes, I am personally making deep sacrifices or deep changes. I'm willing to go through pain. I'm willing to go through punishment, but it's not about me. It's about the purpose that I am serving that calls that forth from me. And when people see that in other people's lives, they are attracted to it and they are inspired by it. And then they join the cause. They rally to that, and they in turn begin to be willing to make those kinds of deep sacrifices, deep changes for the sake of the cause. And
Now
when
that cause can be, I'm thinking about related to business leadership. Sometimes if you have an entrepreneur CEO who is very willing to go down a path that no one else is willing to go on, taking some leaps of faith, developing a product or service, and um, then he pulls people around him who are also willing to do that same thing and walk down that path, and you know, push away the naysayers, so to speak, in order to make that path and do that thing. Usually it's later that those other people were like, when they become successful, then the other people are kind of with their jaws dropping, and the ones who actually made the sacrifices and stood for what they really believed in and stood for each other, they're the ones that say, yeah, and you wish you thought of it, and that's the thing. A lot of times people will think about deep change. They will think, boy, I wish I could leave my job, because something inside them is saying, this doesn't feel right, it's not good for me, I know there's something that I'm supposed to do that's different than this. Maybe they can't even articulate what that is, but there's a value, a principle deep down that causes them to be dissatisfied. But if they'll never take those steps to actually leave that place or leave that job or step out of that role and do something different, then they won't be able to start to hone the fineness that they need to be able to discover what that is. So sometimes it takes many deep changes in a row, over the course of your life. With each one, you're fine-tuning more and more. Okay, what is that calling? Because something inside of you, we're calling it the values and the principles that you're standing for, don't allow you to stay in that place, even if you can't say what they are. So some entrepreneurs get that way too. I mean, they know they can't stand doing the job they're in, and these might be people that go from job to job for a while, and you think, well, that person is, irresponsible. They can't keep a job. But maybe it's that in their heart and in their mind, they know there's something else driving them, and it's taken them a while to get there.
That's right, because as we go through life, we really refine our understanding of what our purpose, what our calling is. I know I'm still working through that, and it's vastly different from what I thought it was when I was 24.
Well, you had an idea, and so did I, about where we would be or what we would be doing, and we set our sights on it and went 100%, and it's a good thing to go 100%. Towards the direction that you think, but it's also good then to be very flexible when that direction changes.
Yeah, and then you attack that one with 100% as well.
But think about this. That is exactly what makes successful companies survive through changes in the economy. They know that the path is going to change, so they don't push back against that. They don't reject it. They don't have knee-jerk reactions to it. Instead, they say, it's time for deep change for our company. How will we embrace that? Because things came upon. Think about the things that came unexpectedly in the mid-90s and then again in 2008 with the economy. Which companies survived? The ones that responded to the deep change issues that came about in the way that you said was positive to respond, by looking at being accepting of uncertainty, and then looking for ways that would enrich. And those are the companies that did that reinventing and that did that without losing focus of the people, the assets in their companies, and they're the ones that are thriving right now.
Yeah, they committed 100% to being successful within the new reality.
Right. Now we're talking, because now we're applying. What year was this book written? Look on the inside of the cover and see.
It's 2000.
2000?
2000, yeah.
All right. Well, just think about how much has happened between 2000 and now, right? And think about the principles that are so good in that book that still apply. And that's one of the reasons why it's a really good book. Because even if you don't look at it for a long time, which I didn't until we decided, to put this in the 3-book series, still some of those bookmarks were in there from before. And I remember things are coming back to me about having read it the first time. And I think, well, that's the hallmark of a good book to have on your shelf. One that you can go back to over and over again, that has kind of timeless principles in it. And they're good for you personally, but they're so good for a business. And I think that's, one thing I would like to share with people who are doing business, is find these kind of books that mean this kind of thing to you. The kind that you can go back to and that can be kind of pillars of reality for you.
Absolutely. And hey, speaking of bookmarks, I don't know if
Yeah.
you can see all the
Yeah.
bookmarks
Yeah.
that we put into this book, and if you open it up, almost any page uh, here, you'll see that it's
No, it's all
underlined
highlighted.
and yeah, highlighted. So we have really used this book a lot.
Yeah.
So anyway, when you're acting out of principle, when you're persisting through pain and punishment, when you're attracting people through moral power and inspiring others, it's at that point that the external circumstances begin to change. And Quinn uses three historical persons as examples of their lives as examples of this. And this really central to the book itself because each chapter starts with a quote or an example of these people's life. And the first one is Jesus. The second one is Gandhi, and the third one is Martin Luther King Jr. And just knowing very superficially what most everyone knows about this, about these people, is that each one of them acted out of principle. And when they acted out of principle, they left. They walked right into resistance. They experienced personal pain. They even experienced official punishment and sanction. Um, but as they did that, then they demonstrated a moral power that attracted others to the cause and to them. And then as that nucleus of people began to build around that moral power, then society was transformed by that.
Right. Now, look, none of us are Jesus, Gandhi, or King. I mean, and we might even think, really, well, why is that even relevant to talk about people that are that so far removed from us? And I think the reason it's relevant is to know this, that the principles are the same for them as they are for us. The
Absolutely.
principle of deep change is the same. And then don't forget, each one of those had followers. And the followers that followed them, these three key people in history, were so influential on the followers, in the followers' lives, that they, who were ordinary people, became inspired to walk in some of the same ways.
Yes.
So they were models. These three were models. I mean, there's no way that every person in the world could rise to the same significance as the few people in history that we do tend to, that history shows were real standouts in those areas. But I think that's because they were meant to be those kind of models for us.
Yes, but I would say also, well, we may not rise to that same level of global recognition. I think within every person there lies the potential to walk through those levels of deep change and exhibit that kind of moral power so that whatever your scope of influence is, you can bring significant change into that scope of influence. Let me just, and often it will be nameless, you know. Uh, Let me just offer an example from the news right now. Uh, many of you will be aware of the scandal that's going on within the Veterans Administration, the veteran hospitals, and the um, the malpractice that has gone on there, the cover-ups that have taken place there, and that people have actually died from the malpractice and things that were going on within the VA administration. But for years and years, the general public was unaware of the
Right.
condition of what was going on. But then a whistleblower came to the fore and began to talk about what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few whistleblowers, and honestly, I can't remember their names. I know there will probably be some real news junkies out there that could recall their names, but I don't know their names. But there were one person, then two, then three, maybe four that began to stand up and say, hey, this is what's going on. And they first stood up within the organization and tried to affect change within the organization. And it's coming out recently, the pain and the punishment that they went through within the organization as the organization tried to suppress their voices
Mm-hmm.
from rocking the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
And so they suffered professionally, at least professionally, if not personally, from that system. But they continued, and as they continued to talk, then others from inside the system began to speak out. And then the press began to get hold of it and to rally to the cause. And then a few politicians began to pick up the cause. And now we see that because these few whistleblowers had the courage to stand up and say, you know what, this is not right, and this is what we need to be doing, and then to persist in that. Now we're seeing that the political system and the VA system is beginning to move to make changes. Now we aren't. Nobody can say we're seeing massive changes at this point, but still, even to begin to move the big apparatuses of government to, first of all, to acknowledge the problem that it
Mm-hmm.
really exists, and then to start to address the problem in and of itself is a huge accomplishment. And those few whistleblowers that I can't call their names,
Mm-hmm.
they're the ones that started it, and they were following this process, and they will probably never go down in history. They won't be remembered personally, but the effect that they're going to have on the health care of our veterans may be the most significant thing that's happened to that since it came into existence. We'll wait and see how it works out, but it's pointing towards we're going to get some major change there, I think.
Right.
So, when we talk about deep change and transformational change, there's actually 8 steps that Quinn says is involved in that. And those 8 steps are envisioning a productive community, first looking within, embracing the hypocritical self, transcending fear, embodying a vision of the common good, disturbing the system, surrendering to the emergent process, and enticing through moral power. Those are the 8 steps.
Now, we're going to talk about those steps next time, aren't we?
Actually, I thought we'd hit the first 4 tonight.
I think actually I have an appointment coming up here
Okay.
that I have to go to
Okay.
myself, and I can certainly leave for now and say goodbye to everybody, and you can certainly address those first four. Just go ahead and do that, and I can come in and pick it up with you the next time.
Well, I think we've been on about an hour now, so why don't we just call it an evening?
Well, that way, when we pull back in, we can definitely go from number one through number eight then. At least we'll get some continuity that way for people who do watch just that one. It can stand alone, and I think that would be good.
Yeah. So next time we'll pick it up and talk about the 8 steps of transformational change. And we're really looking forward to that. Thanks for sitting in, watching this video. Please feel free to leave comments. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. We really want to improve these to get them better. If you find something you like here, please like the video and share it. And drop back by next Thursday, and we'll talk again about how to change the world, how you can get extraordinary results through these processes of transformational change. Good night, and
Okay.
we'll see you next time.
Okay. Good night.